Hello, and welcome to Burns Banter, the podcast that takes a fresh look at the life and works of Robert Burns, hosted by myself, Alistair Turnbull. But today's episode is a bit unusual. Usually I record in my studio at home, but today I've come on a pilgrimage. I've come down to Burns country and I'm in Dumfries just now. Actually, I'm in the St Michael's graveyard. Why am I here? Well, follow me over this way and I'll show you why. Dumfries was the last town that Burns lived in, and he's buried here. You might notice a large white mausoleum behind me right just now. That is where Burns is buried, alongside his wife and some of his children. So let's go and have a wee look. Come on. Now this is a beautiful big mausoleum, fitting for Burns, for Scotland's national poet. But he wasn't originally buried here. Burns was originally buried on the 25th of July 1796 in this graveyard, yes, but he was buried in a single grave, pretty much unmarked with a stone slab, just with his name on it. I think it was actually, if we come over here, I think the grave was originally in the corner way over there. And people came to see Burns, but they couldn't find his grave. William Wordsworth and his sister and all the rest of it came to see Burns's grave. They couldn't find it. So I think it was in 1803, some of the local people got money together to make a better place for Burns's final resting place. And in 1815, his remains were buried in here. Let's come up and see if we can see inside. Let's go and see if we can see inside there, Hannah. Hannah's my beautiful camera woman just now. What are you seeing in there, Hannah? Tell me. It's the mausoleum, isn't it? Yeah. Well, you can see on the wall in the back there, there's a statue of Burns, and I think it's an angel looking down at him. And Burns is standing beside a plough, the old ploughs of the days gone by. On the ground you can see the stone that marks over the top of the vault, and it says, "In memory of Robert Burns, who died on the 21st of July 1796 in the 37th year of his life, and Maxwell Burns, who died on the 25th of April 1799, aged 2 years and 9 months. Francis Wallace Burns, who died on the 9th of July 1803, aged 14 years, his sons. The remains of Burns removed into the vault below 19th September 1815 and his 2 sons. Also the remains of Jean Armour, relict of the poet born February 1765, died 26th March 1834, and Robert, his eldest son, who died on the 14th of May 1857, aged 70 years. Wow. So lots of the Burns family in there. And if we actually take a bit of a further look around this graveyard, if you follow me over here, you might notice, you'll see blue plaques. Can you see that, Hannah, with the camera? Blue plaques on the ground. Can you pick that up? Okay, a lot of the graves in here have blue plaques on them. Let's follow me over this way and I'll show you some more. Because the blue plaque represents a contemporary of Burns. So someone that Burns knew and lived at the same time as him, obviously. And they're buried, a lot of them are buried in here because a lot of them lived and died in Dumfries. And there's one person I want to introduce you to, and he's over this way. The blue plaques are all over the place, they're quite good. Over this way as well is the original grave of Burns. I'll show you where it is. If you look to your left there, Hannah, with the camera, you'll see a sign that says "Site of Original Grave of Robert Burns," right in the corner. Nobody could find them at all, which is why they made the modern mausoleum. And the other person I was going to introduce you to is Jock Hislop. He's over here. This is the grave of Jock and Jean Hislop. They were the landlord and landlady at the Globe Inn in Dumfries. And the Globe Inn is a regular of Burns. He went there many times because Burns' actual house is just 5 minutes walk from here. And another 5 minutes over the other side of his house is the Globe Inn. And as I say, Jock and Jean Hislop were the landlady and the landlord of the Globe Inn when Burns was here. And we're going to walk to Burns' house, have a look there, and we're going to go and have a bit of lunch in the Globe Inn. So I want to take you through Burns country while I'm here to give you a flavour of where Robert was from. It might seem strange to start off this tour at his final resting place, but I don't know, it just gives me a sort of anchor of where we are. Burns is always there now. Let's go see his house, have a bit of lunch. Okay, we've not even gone 5 paces from the church, by the way, which is just over to the right there. And we've already come across a statue to Jean Armour, which is obviously Robert's wife. And seeing as I'm here, I thought I would recite a poem called I Love My Jean. And it goes like this. Of all the airts the wind can blaw, I dearly like the west. For there the bonny lassie lives, the lass I loo the best. The wild woods grow and the rivers row and mony a hill between, but day and night my fancy's flight is ever wi' my Jean. I see her in the dewy flowers, I see her sweet and fair, I hear her in the tuneful birds, I hear her charm the air. There's not a bonny flower that springs by fountain, shaw or green, there's not a bonny bird that sings, but minds me o' my Jean. Okay, we're about 10 steps further down than we were before. The church is just up there, the statue's just up there of Jean Armour. We're now in Burns Street, and behind me is a memorial garden to some of Burns' works. So let's see what's here. Let's take a wee wander. First of all, on the right hand side is one of his poems. My love is like a red, red rose that newly sprung in June, and my love's like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry. It's not the entire poem, it's just part of it. Over here, picture of Robert at the plough. Now, he was a farmer most of his life, and it's actually said that Robert worked with a slight stoop because he was in the plough so much, and because when he was younger, the family was very poor and he was quite malnourished. He didn't have great bones. It's one of the reasons he was ill most of his life, unfortunately, was malnourishment. And talking about nourishment, on the left hand side here we have the grace, the Selkirk grace. Some hae meat and canna eat, and some would eat that want it. But we hae meat and we can eat, so and say the Lord we thank it. That's Robert's go-to grace. Here is a picture of, can you guess who it is? It's an Ayrshire farmer and he's getting a bit pissed. Yep, it's Tam O Shanter. Tam O Shanter's the guy on the left. Okay, so just across the road there was the memorial garden I was talking about, and behind me now is Burns' house. Now we're in Burns Street, but it wasn't originally called Burns Street. I think it was called the Mill Vennel. And this house was bought by one of Burns' sons, and it's got a plaque here. It was bought by Colonel William Nichol Burns and placed by him under the care of trustees for its maintenance as far as possible in perpetuity. But it wasn't always as nice as this. It was Burns' house, it was in various states of disrepair, it was a children's home for a wee while. But now it's been put back to the way it was when Burns was here, and it's a sort of museum to him. So let's go inside and have a look. Come on, follow me in. Okay, if you head into here, I will follow you. So in here is the kitchen, and you see some of the artefacts, some of the stuff that was here when Burns was here. Original fireplace back there where they would cook. And I just read in one of the things over here that Jean, his wife, had various recipes for things, including one of them that was called curry cooked the Indian way. I don't know if you ever fed Burns curry, but she made curry. And a bit that really disappointed me, actually, I read down here as well, that Burns' wife wrote what did she say? At all meals he had a book beside him on the table. He was fond of plain things and hated tarts, pies and puddings. Robert Burns didn't like a pie. That's quite disappointing to me. Don't know why. Anyway, let's go upstairs to one of his rooms, the bedroom, and one of the places where he wrote some of the famous songs. I believe that this is actually the room that Burns had died in, and he would have died in a bed similar to this. Because houses didn't have central heating back then, they only had fireplaces and stuff. When the fire went out at night, it was always very cold, so they had a box bed. It's basically the mattress is in there, and they could draw a curtain over themselves at night, so that once they've heated up the bed and the covers, the curtain helped to keep them warm in the bed at night as well. Bit of ingenious thinking there from the 17th century. Through here is a small sort of study. Now, in this study was a writing desk. It's not Burns' original writing desk, but he did use this one. This came from a manse quite near, was it Lochmaben? I think it was Lochmaben. Yeah, the old manse at Lochmaben. Burns used to visit the old manse at Lochmaben when he was an excise man, and he spent many nights there. He had good fun with the family that lived there, the reverend that lived there. But in this room right here, Burns worked on some of his most famous songs. In this room, this tiny writing room here, he worked on the songs A Man's a Man for All That, Scots Way Hey, and here is where he wrote My Love is Like a Red, Red Rose. In this very room, he put quill to paper and wrote My Love is Like a Red, Red Rose. It's quite a small room. Such big songs. My Love is Like a Red, Red Rose, a poem written by Robert Burns in 1794, written by him in this very room. It goes like this. My love is like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. As fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry. Till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun, and I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands o' life shall run. And fare thee well, my only love, and fare thee well a while, and I will come again, my dear, though it were 10,000 mile. A beautiful love poem. Thank you, Robert. Okay, so we're in the town centre of Dumfries just now. It's only about 5 minutes walk down the road from Burns' house, which is over that way. And to the left of me right now is the Globe Inn. Now this has been here since 1610, and it was one of Burns' local pubs. Let's take a walk through the venue and have a look at the building. Follow me through. Right. As you can see, the building behind me, original 1610, hasn't been changed very much. Some of the rooms inside are still the same as when Burns was here. If we go around the front, there's a bit of a Burns garden. Let's have a look around the front.
You can join in.
Join in, I'll go.
Right. Again, this is still the original building for the Globe Inn, and the part behind me on my left over here was the original stables for the building. So Burns, when he used to ride down from his house, would put his horse in there and go into the building over here. But Burns has touched this area all over. There's stuff out here I'll show you. You probably can't read this, but this large stone here has the words to Burns's song "A Fond Kiss," which I think is one of the best love songs ever written. You should really look it up, listen to it on YouTube, but it's beautiful. On the picture on my left hand side over here is a picture about the song "The Rigs o' Barley," where he went and met with the Anna in the fields, and this is a song all about a meeting, and it's quite an essential song. Look it up. There's maybe a few adult themes in that one though. And these black pictures over here are taken from the poem Tam O Shanter. The one on the left hand side there is the witches and the devil all dancing. Now we'll go up here a bit further and I'll show you another thing that Robert got involved in. There's a nice picture of him there on his horse charging in the sand towards a ship, but I'll show you a better picture around the corner. So this is it here. Now this isn't about a poem or anything, this is when Robert worked as an exciseman and he lived in Dumfries just up the road there. As part of his duties he had to fight against people who sold illicit booze. And as part of that, he got his sword out, he charged into the water and attacked a pirate ship. I mean, that's full on Johnny Depp stuff right there, you know. But he actually did that. That's not something he wrote about. He did that. Cutlass out, attacked a pirate ship. Anyway, let's go back to the pub. So I'm hoping to go in, have a few drinks, hopefully see some of the original rooms. One of the rooms upstairs, Burns used to stay in. And one of the rooms to the left hand side he used to read his poems in. So let's go inside and have a look. Okay, so we're inside the Globe Inn, and this is one of the rooms that's original, really original, back to the time of Burns. It's the same ceiling height, it's the same floor. This table is not a copy. This table was here in the days of Burns, and Burns probably sat around this table. The chairs are copies, but the table's original. But the one thing I really want to show you in this room is over here. This is the poet's chair. This is the chair that Robert sat in, the actual chair he sat in when he was reciting poetry in this room 250 odd years ago. It's still here, it's still in the same place. Now the local custom is, if you sit in the poet's chair, you have to recite some poetry. So, luckily enough, there's a Burns book of poems right next to me here. And I only wish I had my glasses on so I could actually read some of it. Let's have a look, see what we've got. A Grace After Dinner. Let's read this one, okay? O thou in whom we live and move, who made the sea and shore, thy goodness constantly we prove, and grateful would adore. And if it please thee, power above, still grant us with such store, the friend we trust, the fair we love, and we desire no more. Amen. A grace written by Burns in 1789. We sleek it, Coorin, timorous beastie, what a panic is in thy breastie! I wouldn't run awa sae hasty with bicker and brattle. I'd be laith to run and chasey with murder and pattle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion is broken nature's social union and justifies that ill opinion at me, thy earthborn companion and fellow mortal. I could go on, but I'm not going to go on. I just love sitting in this chair and reciting some poetry. I feel like I'm back in the day, 250 years ago. And if you come to the Globe Inn today, you'll be able to sit in this room. They have an offer on. It's quite expensive. It's £295 per person. You can sit in here all night with endless whiskey and have a good time and relive the days of Burns. But when they were doing the renovation a couple of years ago, they found lots of things. In here there's a razor that Burns used, there's shards of the old bed, and the cupboard over here is the visitor's book from the 1800s. So there's a lot of history here, a lot of history still in this room that was here. Well, not the visitor's book wasn't here, but the table and the chair and that was all here when Burns was here. I find it great. I find a real sense of his presence and of the time in this room. And if we go next door, it is the kitchen. You go that way, Hannah. You're going to fall over. There we go, this way. I'll go first, okay? So, this room is now called Mrs. Hislop's room because Jean Hislop was the woman in charge of the pub back then with her husband Jock. And this is the fireplace. This is original. It has the old irons that come back and forth and all the rest of it. This is what she would have cooked on 250 years ago. Burns was here all the time. He would have eaten food cooked from this area here. Again, it puts me back in touch with the actual man himself, with the area, with the things that affected him, the things that affected his poetry and his writing. They're all round about us in this area. And I love coming down to Dumfries and experiencing these things. And I know it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but I'm quite enjoying it. And I think next we're going to go upstairs to see the bedroom he stayed in as well. Okay, so we're coming upstairs now in the Globe Inn. This is a modernised part of the hotel, but not through here. This is an original bedroom. Burns' bedroom. You come in here and you feel like, again, you've walked back 250 years in time. It's just amazing. It's original walls, wood, it's the original fire. That desk is not original, but this chair over here, this one in the corner, the wood has been dated. This has been a chair for over 400 years. 400 years. It hasn't been in the Globe Inn for 400 years, but it's been in Dumfries for 400 years. That's a smaller version of one of the statues of Jean Armour. There's a nice statue of Burns there. And again, this is the kind of beds that they used back then. 4-poster with the curtains drawn over to keep you warm at night. And again, Burns stayed in this room many, many times. And I don't know if I can pick it up on the camera, but on the windows, which are original here, you can see he's scrawled words, not scrawled, he's written words there, all the way down there, all the way along there. I can barely see them myself. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up. But that was Burns himself that used his diamond tip stylus to etch that onto the window. There's more over here as well. But unfortunately this is a copy window because, pardon me, the original window is now in a museum somewhere. And when the gentleman took over this hotel in 2019, I think it was, who bought the hotel not to make money out of it, but to help to preserve the Burns legacy, he asked for the window back from the museum and they wouldn't give it to him, which is a shame, but never mind. So this, very original, feels like you're back in time. I feel like Burns could have just jumped out of bed and was heading downstairs for his breakfast and Mrs. Hislop would make him something, you know. Anyway, let's leave this very old room, this very authentic room, and we'll go through to what is now the modern dining room in here, which is quite something. We'll show you. Come this way. Oh, excuse me. This is now a private dining room in the Globe Inn. You could come here and have a dinner if you've got lots of money. They're working towards a Michelin star just now down the stair. But I think that it just looks authentic to the time and place. I believe actually they have quite a lot of well-known people here. James Cosmo was here last weekend and had an event in this very room. And again, you can hire it. What a great place, the Globe Inn. Well, I think I've had enough of the Globe now. I think I'm going to go downstairs and maybe have a bit of lunch, and then we're going to head somewhere else on our whistle-stop tour of Dumfries and Burns country. So here we are at the final venue of our whistle-stop tour of Burns country in Dumfries. This is Ellisland Farm. Come on and I'll show you a bit more about it. I'll tell you a bit more about it actually. This is where Robert and Jean Armour lived most of their married life. Here, he actually had the place designed and built because he loved the countryside round about here. He loved the River Nith, which is just over here. And it was his time here that he wrote some of his most famous poems. I know for a fact that this is the place, I think probably in that building over there, is where he worked on Auld Lang Syne, the song we all sing at New Year. He didn't write the original, he heard the original either in Dumfries or in Edinburgh. It had never been written down, it was an ancient song, only sung in pubs and clubs and in family occasions. But he took it, he worked on it, he wrote it down. He probably changed the tune as well, he changed it to the tune we now know. So he did all that here in Ellisland. Keep on walking around, I'll show you the River Nith. But that's not the only famous poem he did when he was here, because I think possibly one of his most famous poems he wrote when he was here as well. And that poem was Tam O Shanter. And he wrote it because he met a guy called Francis Grose, right? He actually met Francis Grose in a building about 1.5 miles up the road here. It was actually at the house of a Captain Riddle. Captain Riddle was very well off. His house is beautiful, very nice, very grand. And Francis Grose was an antiquarian, is that what you call him? He was writing a book called the Antiquities of Scotland, right? And Burns wanted him to put in the old Alloway kirkyard. A couple of reasons for that. His dad's buried there, and also his dad helped to repair the walls of the old Alloway kirkyard when he was alive, so his dad actually worked on the building. So he wanted Francis Grose to put this old Alloway kirkyard in the book The Antiquities of Scotland, and Francis Grose said, I will put it in there, I'll put a picture of it in there if you give me something to print beside it, i.e. write a story for me about this churchyard. And a couple of months later Burns sent him 3 stories, and Francis Grose chose the second of the 3 stories, and that turned out to be Tam O Shanter. And he worked on it and it became one of his longer and most famous poems, Tam O Shanter. All because he wanted the old Alloway kirkyard to be put in a book called The Antiquities of Scotland. Weird, eh? Anyway, let's go have a look at the River Nith, which is round here. As it says on the sign here, during the time Robert lived here, he wrote many of his finest songs and poems, including To Mary in Heaven, Tam O Shanter, The Address to the Wounded Hare. Mary in Heaven, that's actually for a woman that was called Highland Mary, that Burns had a relationship with when he was not allowed to marry Jean Armour. I mean, how bad must your reputation be if in the 18th century you get a girl pregnant and the father of the girl says, no, you can't marry him, he's trouble, you can't get anywhere near him. And that's what happened to Burns. Him and Jean Armour was pregnant, but Jean's father would not allow her to marry him until he became a famous poet, and then it was okay. Anyway, down this way is the River Nith. Robert would often, what I would call, walk up and down the banks of the River Nith. He called it roving. He'd rove up and down the banks, get inspiration for the nature and beauty of the area, and write beautiful poetry. And when you just listen to the place, the quietness of the air, the gentle running water, it's a great start to any poem. And as I said, just about a mile and a half up that way was Captain Riddle's house that he used to visit quite a lot. He had friends all round about here. Anyway, there's probably more stories I could tell, but I think we've come to the end of our whistle-stop tour of Dumfries and Burns country. I hope you're going to join me next week on Burns Banter, where I'm going to go to Ayrshire and do the same again. We'll do a whistle-stop tour of the Burns country in Ayrshire. But until then, Slán Java.